Our top story this hour. There are renewed diplomatic efforts here in Paris today to end the war in Ukraine. President Emmanuel Macron is hosting a summit of the so-called Coalition of the Willing at the Elysée Palace. Dozens of heads of state are attending. Now, Donald Trump is not in Paris, but he has sent Steve Witkoff, who met with Vladimir Putin last month, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Now, also at the Elysée Palace today is Clovis Casali, our reporter covering developments. Clovis, what are you hearing about what's being discussed behind closed doors?
Well, first, let me show you behind me all the cars of the various heads of states lined up in the courtyard of the Elysée Palace, a rare scene here at the French presidential palace. As we speak, the summit is underway with 27 heads of state and government, 35 participants inside a room with the French president, of course, chairing President Emmanuel Macron. And you have Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's special envoy, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, talking about security guarantees for Ukraine. This is a summit of the Coalition of the Willing. What is this coalition? Well, the staunchest allies of Ukraine. And you have the Ukrainian President Volodymy Zelensky also briefing his partners on the situation, on what he needs, what he is ready to concede also possibly. The Elysée Palace, the entourage of the French president, telling us that the discussion is very much about what to do once a ceasefire comes into force, if a ceasefire is reached with Russia in the face of the Russian aggression. Ukraine is suffering and needs peace as soon as possible. So what could be put in place after that? What kind of security guarantees? We're told there would be several lines. There's first one defense line of Ukrainian forces, then possibly a second line with a multinational force, a peacekeeping force, if you will, with several nations involved. And then a third defensive line, if you will, would be security, a backstop, a US backstop. So all of these discussions here, possibly also elaborating legally and political ways, guarantees to ensure that a ceasefire is respected if, again, a ceasefire is reached with Russia.
And Clovis, while this meeting about Ukraine is happening today here in Paris, there has been quite a bit of European unity today, hasn't there, on what to do, well, on significant anger at least, over the possibility of some kind of American action in Greenland.
And why are we talking about Greenland? Because Donald Trump has repeated that he wants Greenland to be the 51st US state. He says he needs to take control of Greenland as it's a question of national security for the United States. It would be interesting to know if Emmanuel Macron talked about Greenland with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff this morning in a meeting that we weren't told about, journalists. A meeting between the three men before Emmanuel Macron met with Volodymyr Zelensky. A work session, we're told, this morning before they all four later had lunch. What we do know is that a statement has been released with EU leaders not antagonizing or criticizing the US or Donald Trump, but saying quite the opposite, saying there's a need to work hand in hand with the United States, that Greenland is a priority for Europe and also a priority to ensure security on an international level, but also on a transatlantic level. In this statement, EU leaders, the French president, the German chancellor, and others saying also that, of course, Denmark and Greenland are part of NATO, and there's a need to keep this cohesion in NATO with, remember, the Danish Prime Minister saying it would end NATO if America decided to take over Greenland. And just a last word on this statement, the conclusion is very clear. Greenland belongs to its people and this territory belongs to Greenland and Denmark. In other words, its future needs to be decided by Denmark and Greenland, not by the US.